So, welcome, dear colleagues. I'm very excited to have as our guest Ruth Davey. You're bringing today one of the programs that was presented to the Innovation in Mindfulness Awards. And we are very grateful to the UK colleagues for sharing this with eamba. And we are grateful to you, Ruth, for being here with us and sharing your experience. Your experience for you is not really new because you already founded Look Again in 2012. So you have quite some experience of bringing together your passion for photography and nature and your way of teaching mindfulness. So I'm very pleased, I'm very excited, I'm very grateful that you're going to share that with us. And with this, I pass on to you to please guide us in a practice, and then we will listen to your journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Katerina, and thank you so much for inviting me to eamba. It's my first kind of proper encounter with eamba, so hopefully not the last. So I'm going to give a couple of practices, so practical practices in the use of what I usually call mindful photography or a mindful approach to photography. And then I'll also be giving a kind of slightly more formal presentation, but that will be interspersed with another practice. And then we'll have time, hopefully, for a little reflection at the end with some questions as well. Okay, so I'd like to invite you all to just arrive in this space together. And you might want to just become more aware of how you're sitting and maybe readjust yourself, your posture. Make sure you're comfortable. You might want to loosen your shoulders or your neck slightly. It's the end of a day. Placing your feet firmly on the floor. And if you'd like to close your eyes or just lower your gaze or soften your gaze. And bring your awareness in a very gentle and curious way to any sounds that you may be able to hear right now. Sounds that are maybe close by, sounds that are further away. You may want to bring your attention more specifically to how your feet feel as they connect with the ground. And as your bottom connects with the chair. And use this as an opportunity to really ground yourself in this moment. Now, in a few moments, I'm going to invite you to very slowly open your eyes again. But when I do so, the invitation is for you to literally open your eyes and without raising your gaze, look down and notice the first thing that you see. So before we do this, you might want to just sit back a little bit more from the screen, from your desk or table where you are, just to give yourself a bit of space. So when you're ready, very slowly open your eyes, and without raising your gaze, bring your attention with curiosity to the first thing that you see, literally in front of you. Now, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be something really quite ordinary, or even boring, or mundane. And in some ways, the more ordinary, the better. Now, what we're doing here is learning to see with a beginner's mind. We're learning to see as if we've never seen before. So the most ordinary, it might be the floor, it might be the desk or the table. It could be anything. And imagine that you're a very young child and that you're looking and noticing whatever it is you're seeing as if you've never seen it before. And you're not really putting words to it to describe it, but you've got some sense. You're kind of connecting in with your senses. Your sense of vision in particular. And you're noticing that there's colour. And you're curious about the colour. There may be one colour, there may be lots of colours or different shades or tones of the same colour. You're also noticing that there's texture involved in what you're looking at. So be curious about the texture of what you're looking at. Maybe it's soft, maybe it's hard, maybe it's rough, maybe it's smooth, or maybe it's a combination of all of those things. Notice if there's any patterns or particular shapes. And notice what's happening to the light. Whether what you're looking at is shining bright, maybe there's some light that's literally flowing right onto it. Or maybe it's quite dark or shadowy. Maybe there's reflection. Maybe there's a combination. And notice how you're feeling as you're noticing. And be curious about that feeling or feelings. And now I'd like to invite you to, if you have a camera or a phone nearby, you might have a phone nearby, to actually just have another look, but now through the lens. First of all, with your eyes, and then kind of get maybe even closer. So you might even want to move your body towards what it is you've been looking at. You may want to leave your chair. You may actually want to get right down to the floor or whatever it is you've been looking at. And before, the invitation is going to be for you to create an image of what you're looking at and what you've been looking at for the last 5 or so minutes. But the invitation here is to do this without snapping. So you're not snapping. You're actually creating an image with real consciousness that you're doing that you're creating an image with curiosity, and you're making choices about what you're choosing to have in the frame and what you're choosing to leave out of the frame. So it's very, very intentional, with awareness and with consciousness that that's what you're doing. And notice how you're feeling as you're doing this as well. So when you are ready, and if you're creating an image with a phone or a camera, notice how you're framing it. You might be holding the camera portrait. You might be holding it maybe more landscape or even diagonally. So there's no right or wrong. You hold it whatever way you want. And experiment with maybe keeping your camera quite a long way away from what it is you're looking at. And then maybe extending your arm and getting even closer to it. And just notice, be curious about the difference that even like an arm movement makes as you connect in an intentional way with the object or the space that you're looking at. You might want to bring your attention to your breath at this point as well. Just notice how you're feeling with your breath. Notice if you feel like you'd actually like to change the way you're breathing in any way. You might want to actually take in a couple of deeper, slightly deeper breaths as you're looking, and maybe exhaling. Just see how that feels. I often find that creating an image, actually the making of it, i.e. the kind of clicking of the shutter, so to speak, on an exhale, feels more in flow than when if I do it when I'm inhaling. See how that works for you. Notice any judgments that you may be making about your photograph, or if you've taken more than one. Be curious about any judgments that you're making around, oh, I like that, or maybe not, maybe I don't like that one quite so much, or actually maybe that's a really not very good, or whatever it might be, and be curious about that. So the aim here is not to create an amazing image, a beautiful image, an interesting image. The aim here is to really bring our curiosity to what it is that we're looking at and seeing in a way that supports us in really slowing down and literally seeing the most ordinary, everyday things in a different way. So if you'd like to come back to the room now, like to the screens. And I'd like to invite you to share any observations. You might even want to share an image. You might want to find an image on your phone, maybe one that one that you've just taken right now. And maybe this isn't one that I've taken just now, but just bring it up to the screen like that. If you feel like it, if you'd like to share it. Now, note, this is really important. There's no right or wrong about this. There's no right way of doing it or no wrong way of doing it. That's a really important thing about this process. So if you'd like to share an image, please do. And maybe you'd like to speak a little bit about the process for you. How you felt, what the process was like, any thoughts or feelings that arose as you were creating, or, before you were creating the image. Anyone? We're a very small group, so you're kind of on the spot a bit here, aren't you? I realise that. There's no judgment from me.
Yeah, I can start, Ruth.
Great,
I don't know how to share the image, but anyway.
Just bring it up to the screen if you can. Lovely. Place it up a little bit more. Great. Now I don't know what it is of, so maybe you would like to
Right, I had a couple. It's also this one, maybe.
I'm very curious to know more about that, Teresa.
So this is a massage. Can I take the object? Can I show the object?
Please.
This is a massage. It's so old. It has maybe 13 years or so since when I for H&M. So it's always on my desk, and I use it while I'm sitting, to massage myself. But when I open my eyes and I turn, it's shiny, it's gold, it's mirroring me, and and it looked like a body that is just like so interesting, associations. And then I noticed my mind going to the moment, where I was when so a lot of things, and the judgment. And when I was taking pictures, that I can frame different parts with other objects. I took it also with other object. I took complete or just one leg or so it was interesting. And it was reflecting the light as well, and reflecting the images of this room as well. So I was less connected to my breath, really. I was quite a lot into the camera, really. So I forgot a bit my body, even if when you said, breathing in, breathing out. So I was not really present.
Yeah.
So I was present to the sense of the seeing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Teresa. Rosella or Katerina?
When I open my eyes, I see my feet. And so I photographed my feet. And now I show you.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
And it's curious, a lot of sign on my feet.
Yeah.
And it became strange to me, but also beautiful. And also for the feeling and emotion, I feel tenderness about my feet. And also I enjoy your guide. And for me, I stay with the image when you invite us to do. And so I think that now I thought about my feet in a different way.
Interesting. Great.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Rosella.
Thank you.
You've been with your feet your whole life.
Yeah. And they show it.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Katerina, would you like to share anything?
Yes, I've also been with my feet all my life, but they didn't show up in my photographs. So the first thing, you can pin my photograph to see it better. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was my table and my computer. And I was very interested in my table because I recently had the wood renovated. And then when you said to take a photograph of breathing out, I took this one. And then I became very interested in my keyboard. Oh yeah. So I was looking very closely at my keyboard, and I noticed things that I hadn't seen before. That some of the what do you call those? The where the letters are, each key, that each key has a different degree of shininess. And it is obviously because of they are used in a different intensity. So I noticed a thought that I will be at the Apple shop the day after tomorrow, and I will ask them how to best clean my keyboard. It's not dirty, but I would love to do it. So all those things I came up, I was not busy photographing. I was curious about, oh, I saw different things in the wood that has just been renovated.
Mm.
So that was a lovely exercise for me, seeing things that I hadn't noticed.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katerina. Thank you all. So this particular activity is one that that we do generally at the beginning of nearly everything that we offer, whether we're working in a community setting or in a workplace setting or wherever we are. And it's really to encourage people to, well, it is literally to look at anything differently, that anything can be seen differently. And often people do look down at the floor. It's very rare that actually someone photographs their feet, which is really interesting because, the invitation is always to look down. So you'd think that actually people do look at their feet quite automatically. So, and I was really moved, Rosella, by your, by your sharing. It feels, it's very meaningful. And and I mean, I could go on about each of your stories, but it doesn't really matter in a sense. What's happened here is that you've all in your own way made choices. You've been curious, you've created, you've connected, and then you've shared with each other. But you're also every single bit that you've shared, you're never going to see that same object or that same thing again in the same way. And then, if you were to do it again tomorrow with the same thing, you might see it differently as well. So Rosella, you might, if you do it again tomorrow with your feet, something else might come, And maybe Katerina, maybe your computer has some real magic to tell you. Who knows? Who knows? So yeah, and I really love the reflections, Teresa, that you were talking about, the reflections from the room, the reflections of yourself. There's a lot in that as well. I mean, we could go down a bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm not going to. Let's keep it simple. Basically, you opened your eyes, you looked, and you saw something different. And it's as simple as that in some ways. Yeah. So the curiosity, and then what I always find really interesting for everyone I work with, and of course myself, is the judgment that I place on the images when I look at one, and it's like, ooh, that's not very good, or oh no, but actually, and then I have to remind myself that's not the point. That's really not the point. But people do find over time, because this becomes a practice, just like any other form of mindfulness or yoga or any form of activity, it develops as you practice. Yeah, so what we've done here is the beginning of something that if you set yourself maybe a time every day or every week to do something like this for 5-10 minutes, then who knows what might happen just as a result of seeing differently. So that's a kind of very introductory practice that I've offered you there. So I'd like to do you have any questions or anything you'd like to say? Okay, so I'll get on with a bit of a presentation, tell you a bit more about Look Again and our story, etc. And then we'll do another practice. Katerina, I believe that we can go on like beyond the hour if we would like to. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. There's only 4 of us, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so just okay. So this is obviously a photograph of me. Now, I chose to share this particular photograph because it actually tells a bit of my story. I was in a wood where I was actually on someone else's workshop, and we were doing, it was half a day of silence. It wasn't a mindfulness retreat, it was another kind of gathering. But we were having half a day of silence, and it had nothing to do with photography either. But what we were doing was being open to learning from nature. And I was there. I mean, I've always got my camera with me. Well, actually, that's not true, not always, but I did have my camera with me at that point. And I was walking in this little wood, and I really unexpectedly came across a mirror in a wood. And I went and placed myself in front of the mirror, which was not necessarily, well, it wasn't a very comfortable thing for me to do, I must admit. And I thought, maybe I've noticed this mirror because actually I need to look again at Ruth, and I need to spend a bit of time reflecting on myself. You know, maybe a bit about what I look like, but actually going more deeper, you know, who is Ruth? Who really is Ruth? And how do I want to see myself? Or how do I see myself? And how do others see me? Or how would I like others to see me? And actually, are there any choices, different choices I might want to make or not? You know, so I actually went through this really long train of thought, and I spent about half an hour looking at myself. And then I thought, oh, I better take a photograph of this to remember it. So that's me trying to take a self-portrait, looking at myself through the mirror. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't very easy. But that just tells you a little bit about, you know, we can do a whole load of work around identity, and you know, our own lived experience and stories, etc. So the Look Again story has largely come out. The Look Again itself has largely come out of my own experience, my work experience, and my personal experiences, my lived experience. My background is actually community development, although I studied international development, and I've had a very international life in a way. You know, I grew up in Belgium. I went to a French school. And I have connections all over the world, and that's always been a really, really important part of me for me personally, but also in terms of where my vision was for Look Again. And things haven't always been easy. So I've had my own lived experience of anxiety and depression. And in 2015, I had what I used to call a breakdown. I now see it as my breakthrough. And last year, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which was actually a bit of a surprise, because for years and years I've been thinking, well, there's something not, you know, I'm different. I'm feeling, and it didn't. I never did I think, oh, this is ADHD. And actually, now that I know it's ADHD, all of it makes total sense. And even what I do, you know, like with Look Again, and the way that I am in the terms that I relate to the world and how I see the bigger picture very easily, I join up the dots very easily, and I have a lot of creativity. But they're also with that, so that's all the good stuff, that's all the really great stuff. But with that comes a lot of anxiety at times, and a lot of ups and downs. And I actually find more conventional or more traditional forms of mindfulness quite tricky for various reasons, which, you know, we don't have time to go into that now. But now that I know I've got ADHD, it partly explains that. So as part of my own journey, when I was recovering from my breakdown in 2015, I thought, what do I love? I thought, well, I love photography. I love nature. And I'd got into mindfulness. I'd done a couple of 8-week courses, MBSR courses, but I was really struggling with it on lots of different levels. But I kind of unintentionally, really, initially brought those three things together, and it started to help me to feel more grounded again, to feel more present, and yeah, in lots of different ways. My anxiety went down, my low mood came up, and it was actually the beginning of what is now Look Again. So to cut a really long story short, we had I was working initially with a non-profit here in Gloucestershire in the UK where I live, which is an arts and health charity, and working there for quite, well, 3 years as a practitioner, offering what I was calling mindful photography, but offering it to other people who were struggling with mental health challenges of one sort or another, and some of them also with physical challenges. And we were very lucky to develop a relationship with the University of Gloucestershire, who then helped us over a number of years, not just with that charity, but then after that as well, helped to evidence our work. And there's a couple of reports on our website that go into that evidence base. So, and then lockdown happened. So it was like, okay, how do we do this face-to-face work online? And once I got my head around how to do it online, it was a no-brainer really. And to cut another very long story short, we've now worked with thousands of people through what we did, you know, what we've done face-to-face and online, but not just delivering directly to, you know, to clients, to service users. I don't like that word, but, you know, people who are coming through other organizations or individuals, but also now through training other people in our methodology. And, you know, off the back of the evidence, you know, I realized, and speaking with the university, they really helped me to see that actually what we've created is a methodology. And it's very unique. We have our own framework, and you know, we keep developing it, but it's that basically then we applied for the Innovations in Mindfulness Award, and it's our first training, which we call Working with Mindful Photography, which has won us the award, and we've trained over 170 people in over 30 countries at this point. This little collage here they're all images that were created last year. I can't remember the exact dates now, but roughly May till September. So not a long period of time. And it's 4 collages of 9 images that I've put together. And each of those 4 collages represent different aspects of my experience at that point. Things I was struggling with, things that I was being curious about, things I was being grateful for, things, you know, a kind of exploration for one reason or the other. Some of it was about really kind of deep personal inner stuff. Some of it was about identity. Some of it was about connection. And some of it was actually really going back to the basics and doing some of the work that, you know, like that we've just done together today. In terms of, is that better if I go like that? In terms of the process itself, I mean, I've already explained some of this, but and I've explained it through the practice itself. But in terms of the mindfulness side of things, what we're really focusing on are the attitudinal foundations of mindfulness. I mean, there's, you know, we're looking at the intention, we're looking at the awareness, we're looking at the attitudes, and how that can be brought into the creation of images, and also how we connect with place. And that's often, in our case, nature, but it can be anywhere. You know, it literally can be anywhere. But we focus as much as possible on developing our curiosity, our engagement, our connection, and learning from nature, because then we reap all the benefits of that, as well as the mindfulness and as well as the creativity side of things. So this little collage here was literally a little workshop where I was teaching online, and I was literally using what was around me in the same space that I'm at now as part of an inquiry that we were doing. And there were some little seeds in a pot. I happened to be planting, I was kind of playing with some soil, and I was thinking about what I was going to plant in that pot, in that other pot. I had a glass of water next to me like I do now. And I was noticing all of these circles, the textures, the colors, but it was all there just in front of me. And then I thought, okay, what can I learn from this? What action, what can I reflect on? And then what action can I take? So the action I choose to take was very symbolic, but it was the idea of taking some of those seeds, placing them in the soil, and then pouring some water in the soil as a metaphor, really, for something that was going on in my life at the time, which, you know, which I really wanted to nurture and care for and allow it to grow. So all of that came from looking and seeing differently. Hang on. Yeah. So why do we do all of this? I mean, my reasons for doing this are kind of, I mean, I've talked about some of it as part of my story, but I guess for me, the bigger picture of this is that I don't know about you, but I get the impression that the world is in a bit of a state right now, you know? So I've been involved with climate change related work for a long time, partly as a volunteer, as an activist, also in previous jobs that I've had before setting up Look Again, and now with Look Again, not just climate change, but basically the poly crisis that we're facing, and you know, that we've reached planetary boundaries of all sorts, but also the human boundaries that we're facing in terms of, you know, the mental health crisis, the isolation crisis, you know, loneliness. And I won't go on about all the different crises, but that is a big why as to why I do what I do and why I encourage other people to get involved with it as well. So from an individual perspective, from a community and an organizational perspective, but also from a wider planetary perspective. And these two images I chose because they speak to me as life just carrying on as normal. You know, nothing really changes. People are just, you know, it's metaphorical, of course, in some ways, but it also, I think, says a lot. This was on a bridge in London. And then actually, what does it look like if we do things differently? You know, so this guy, I don't know who he is, but this guy stopped, surrounded by the police. He stopped and sat and meditated for a long time on his way to work on this bridge. And for me, it was so powerful to witness that. And I'm very grateful to him for, you know, for that action that he was choosing to take. So a few images of mine, which just show a bit of a process. So this is actually my kitchen floor. So I'm actually in my kitchen now. In front of me is my kitchen sink. Okay. And now that is the floor. Now, every time I do a talk like this or a workshop and I decide to show this image, I look down at my floor and I'm like, actually, my floor is different now than it was in that image. You know, that bit of dirt, like I've got my garden, the door is just here, and we've got a cat. So, you know, we bring in dirt all the time. And I actually quite like sweeping, but obviously the dirt comes in easily, right? So there, I'm looking, and the dirt is there on the floor, but it's very different to that dirt, you know? So even that is like, if I wake up or if I'm here presenting or working or something and I'm feeling anxious, I can literally stop. And all I need to do is look down at the floor and think, okay, you know, breathe maybe, bring my consciousness to what I'm looking at. And that helps me to reframe how I'm feeling and literally see things differently. This was actually a quite, well, I can't remember exactly when. It was last year sometime, but it doesn't really matter when. But this image speaks to me of how I feel when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And it reminds me, you know, it kind of speaks to me of like my head sometimes, you know, it's like, and in my body. And, you know, now that I know that a lot of what I experience is ADHD related, for example, you know, this kind of helps me understand that. And it helps me to look at that, but with more compassion, to look at myself with more compassion and to think, okay, yeah, it's like that, but it's going to change. The flow will change. It will slow down. You know, this is actually a river. It was under a bridge and it had been raining really heavily. So there was lots of water and it was quite stormy. This image here I created quite recently. this was one that spoke to me of, I was actually thinking and feeling my way with something that related to Look Again as an organization. And I was really sensing this green growth, this verdant, natural, this sense of it being lush and wonderful and so much opportunity for growth, etc. But I was also feeling trapped. And, so the net represents this sense of feeling trapped. Now, I didn't go out with the intention of finding a net with a plant growing underneath it. That was not my intention. All my intention was to literally in that moment to stop and to trust that something around me would speak to me of how I was feeling in that moment. And I saw this, and that spoke to me exactly of how I was feeling and what was going on. And now I can share it with you. So, this is the kind of power of actually, when we do slow down, when we do intentionally start to look and we've opened our hearts as well as our minds to seeing differently, then we do see differently, and it can support us in lots of different ways. There's just two more images I'd like to share. This one is, I don't know if you can see properly. It looks like this gate is closed. It is actually open a little bit. So it's a little bit open. And I had just been walking up quite a steep path to get to this gate at the top. I'd never been here before. It was the first time. And then I faced a choice. That's how I saw this. I have a choice here. I have a choice. Do I open the gate more? Do I go through? And then do I carry on round walking in what looked like, a big open space? Or do I actually turn around and move back and go back down the way I've come and then be open to some other direction I was going to go in? And for me, I actually chose to not go forward. I chose to turn back. It was partly a time restriction. But and then I went back, and then there were other things that happened as well on this walk that were very meaningful to me. But for me, it was that awareness and being open to seeing. And later on, it spoke, not at the time, but later on, and even now when I look at it helped me deal with something else that I was looking at in my life in terms of choices, and actually this image is still, for me personally, very powerful for me at the moment. And then lastly, this image here, this was actually taken on the same event where, that photograph of me with the mirror at the front. It's the same event. So it was actually a regenerative leadership event that I was on here in the UK a couple of years ago. But for me, this speaks to me very much of the future. Sort of like the now is what you can see that's very much in focus. It's like it's a natural archway and a hedge. And then there's this, it feels to me like, or it looks to me like a portal going in deep, going into the unknown. It's all very out of focus. I don't know what it looks like. I get a sense maybe of the shapes and the forms and the colors, but I don't actually know what it is. And again, that was very metaphorical. And a lot of our work now is not just around looking at what the now looks like, so literally being present in the moment. It's also about how in this moment can we imagine and can we visualize and therefore create change to create the future that we want to see, rather than accept the future that's coming our way. And I'll speak a little bit more about that maybe later if you'd like me to. So I'm going to offer another practice in a moment, but before I do that, this little infographic just shows in a very simple way what the Look Again process is all about. It's literally sometimes as simple as looking left, looking right, looking down, looking up, looking around, looking forward. But it's also about looking inwards and looking outwards. And very importantly, it is about zooming in. You know, a lot of people think mindful photography is about looking at the detail, getting in there, you know, looking at the detail, like the idea of the macro, you know, or, you know, the zooming in. But actually, just as importantly is the looking out at the bigger picture. And it's a, you know, it's a combination often of those two things, and they both relate to each other. But again, depending on who we're working with, it will vary. And from a lot of our work, especially our more recent work, is about looking not just from the individual perspective, but more and more in terms of the global. And this infographic maybe helps a bit more to understand. So we've got this, you know, the look again ways of seeing, and you'll notice here that we've been inspired very much by the idea of the loving kindness meditations, you know, around starting with ourselves. Well, not necessarily starting with ourselves, but the idea of the self or the individual, and then looking at these different, you know, these different circles, from the self up to the, you know, the world, the planet, etc. Looking from the inner to the outer perspective. But what I find, what is really important to me personally, and to look again as an organization, is that we're not just looking at things that are easy. You know, we need to be able to look at things that are really challenging and difficult. So it's bringing to mind, you know, those people that we actually find really difficult, and not just people, but situations, you know, wherever that might be. And so our process helps us, and our facilitation framework, which I don't have time to go into, but it's part of our methodology, can help us deal with that more. Okay. So I'm still going to stop sharing at this point, come back to something in a moment, but let's have another practice. Are you up for that? Okay, now I'm not sure what I'm going to do right yet, because I'm going to sense into it. Could you please write in chat 1 or 2 words that describe how you're feeling right now? Sense into it, there's no rush. How are you feeling right now? Quiet, intrigued, admiration. Okay. Eye-opening. Okay. That's very appropriate, isn't it, to look again? Would you like to focus on something that relates to the now, and like reframing your experience of the now? And we could look at compassion, for example. Or would you like to focus on something that relates more to the future? Just put now or future in the chat, and we'll see what happens. Sense into it in terms of, how do you feel when you think about the future? Okay. So we have 2 different things there. Oh, you worry about the future, Rosella. Teresa and Katerina, do you also worry about the future?
I wouldn't say it's worry, but I like what you said. I can not exactly, repeat your words, but the concept was, when you show the picture, rather than, allowing to shape the future, rather than, what did you say? Allow than accepting to become what's
Yeah,
becoming.
to create what we want to see.
Yeah, exactly. So I think is more that that's why I chose future with that intention. Can I somehow influence from, of course, the present moment, how the future might become?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's do something that relates to the future. Very, very simply. I mean, you know, we've just launched our new training course for this, and it's a 5-week training course. So you're just going to get a little snippet. We can actually bring the two together anyway. So let's trust in this moment. So in the now, literally this moment, that we will find something, or that something will find us that speaks to us of hope for the future. So you might want to get up from your seat. So the intention here, you know, and it is an intention, the intention, or it's an invitation for you to have an intention. You don't have to do it, okay? I hasten to add, it's always invitational. If you would like to, you might want to trust that something in your immediate environment, it could be the room that you're in, it could be looking out of the window. You know, if you've got a window, that actually might be a nice thing to do. You might want to, I'm going to give you 5 minutes for this, okay? So normally we'd have a lot longer, but we are time restricted. So trust that something will find you, but you might also just find it. I mean, obviously it's a bit of both going on there, but don't have a preconceived idea about what it is you're going to find. Just trust that something will find you that will speak to you of hope, and something that you can then link to as you're considering the future and your concerns around the future. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to sit here. So those of you who will look at this later on the recording, the invitation is for you to do this as well. So at this point, I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to give you all 5 minutes and trust that you will find something and create, you know, 1 or 2 images, but do it in a mindful way. So coming back to that intention, the curiosity, the choices, what you want in your frame, what don't you want in your frame. So not a quick snap. Yeah, just really be present in that moment. Any questions? Okay, so come back on the hour.
It can be also in the room. Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it can be in the room that you're in, absolutely. But you might want to just get up and move around. Move a bit. I'm encouraging a bit of movement here. Yeah. Feel into your body as well, you know. Feel, you might want to stretch a bit. Don't rush to the first thing you see. Give yourself a bit of time. So come back to the screen on the hour in 5 minutes. Okay, everyone, if you can hear me, if you'd like to come back to the screen. Would any of you like to share anything about what you've seen, what you've created, how you felt, the process, and anything you'd like to share? Katerina, you're nodding.
Yes, my first sight was the blossoming cherry tree just in front of my eyes. And when walking around, I realized that I have a vase with the same cherry blossoms in silk. And I hadn't noticed that before, although I placed it. And then continuing to walk around, I noticed a blossoming apple tree, but that the blossoms were also white, but less exuberant than the cherry tree. So, and I hadn't even noticed that the apple trees were blossoming. So I really surprised myself seeing things that I hadn't noticed before, or like the cherry tree, not noticed in its vibrancy as it is now. So really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. And I mean, maybe that blossom is also a symbol for hope as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a thought that's come to my mind. I mean, I wouldn't normally kind of comment on someone else's words, but it could be. I mean, a lot of people do, the springtime generally is a sign of growth and of hope, isn't it? And it can be very symbolic, metaphorical for hope as well.
And I could have said it. It's not that you put it in my mouth, but that is how I feel. That
Okay.
it is a sign of hope. And that is also how I like to look at the world, to see the things that inspire my hope and my trust, because I don't want to worry. I want to be concerned and caring, but I don't want to worry. I think for me, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So and this is helpful because this beauty is giving a good feeling, a feeling of joy and of energy, and that helps me to overcome the concern.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Katerina. Teresa or Rosella, would you like to share anything?
Yes, I can. So I went out and opened the door, still very chilly. So the first thing I noticed actually was my skin being cold. So I wear a little jacket. So I stayed into that, and it was raining a lot as well, just before we had the session. But I opened, and the first thing I saw, there is already shadow. But the bamboo sticks were full in the light, and it was windy, so they were moving, and that was the image of hope, somehow the capacity to adapt, flexibility being a resource. I took a picture. Now I notice also the sky, which I didn't, it's also what you said, referring to bigger picture. I focus a lot on the movement of the bamboo sticks, and yeah, and the wind was changing direction, so they were moving from side to side, and then we're going front and back, and I really moved with. So it was just like the body took over that capacity to dance with and navigate with. I think that was. So I took a picture. I couldn't focus because it was quite far, and it was wet. I didn't want to go with my outside, but then I have a bigger picture now, and I have the little house as well, and as I said, the sky, which is blue with a beautiful cloud formation in the back, and the sun is still on the sticks, the bamboo sticks, while the rest is quite already in shadow. So that was my experience.
Thank you so much. That's lovely. Rosella? Only if you want to.
Yeah.
No pressure. Oh, you do. Okay.
Okay, I take this picture because in front of me I have a window with some plant, and I look to the sky, but something attract my attention, and this is this two future rows. And now it's a cold day and raining day, but they are preparing to blossom.
Yeah.
And I think I have this thought this morning that also that this flower for themselves. Because with this rainy day, I don't go outdoor, and so I don't look at the flower, but they blossom also in this time in which I cannot see them.
Yeah.
They blossom and at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.
So, a bit of hope, a lot of hope right here in front of us. Yeah. I was looking out the window and noticing a tree in my neighbour's garden, which again is now, you know, there was blossom, the blossom's gone, the leaves are out, and every day it's just like, you know, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, yes. And the sun is shining, the evening sun. That's always very hopeful. So you can see how, you know, by bringing our attention more consciously to what we see, can help us to see differently, but it can also help us to then be different or to feel differently. And then also a really important part here is actually what might we want to do differently, which is why we use this thing of see, be, and do differently. Teresa?
I have a question as a teacher. So when a person is in a depressive state, and you ask, you know, whatever you propose, you invite them to see if they can find hope. It might be quite difficult and quite daunting, you know, just like, and creating even more, you know, depression in a sense. I cannot find hope anywhere. So I don't know how you deal with that, how you, you know, in MBCT, you don't offer gratitude practices for the same or whatever, or compassion for the same, or self-compassion for the same reason, because they can't, if people is in a depressive state.
Yeah.
Even more, you know, stories, add to the story, I can't, whatever do. So how do you navigate that?
Great question. So we don't offer the same things to every person. Yeah. So it depends on who we're working with. And most of like the initial part of our work, which was more around reframing the now, that is the work. So we've got you know, until this year, that was what we were focusing on. And it's that work that is evidence-based, and that that we use specifically, well, not always, it can be used in lots of situations, but often with people who are experiencing mental health challenges. But we are not therapists, and we're not, you know, our work is not therapy, and we always have to make that really, really clear. So if, for example, we work with a group of people who might be experiencing anxiety or depression at quite a big level, you know, then we would only do that if we had support from that organisation, you know, so because we work usually in partnership with other organisations. So we'd only go there if we had, you know, staff support. from that organization. But we also, you know, it's part of the facilitation process is to really gauge and also to ask up front, you know, like before you even start a course, so whether it's course or training. You know, when I say a course, I mean a series of sessions. When I talk about the training, it's actually we're training people to then go and deliver to service users themselves. So it's a bit different than the kind of normal sort of mindfulness, different pathways in some ways. Well, it's different terminology, I guess. But you know, we always encourage, well, we always ask people, you know, they complete a health and well-being questionnaire, and we ask them to have their support in place if, you know, if required. And the person, my late colleague Alistair Kelly, who was very, very instrumental in writing up and developing the now training program, the Working with Mindful Photography training program. He's a very experienced mindfulness teacher, you know, Bamba registered, etc., etc. And he was really a really important part of this journey. And he very sadly passed away literally just over a year ago. So yeah, I miss him greatly. But so you know, we had a lot of there's a lot of thought that's gone into our work from that more mindfulness perspective as well. And a lot of the facilitation, you know, a lot of the training that that we offer brings in a mindful approach to facilitation. You know, so it's a very different approach to like you know, what more conventional training might be. You know, and it's trauma informed, etc. as well. Yeah. There's just a couple of other slides that I'd like to share with you, if that's okay. Just checking that, no, hang on. Here we go. Okay. So here, this kind of, it helps to explain the different, you know, what I was just explaining a bit more. So the reframing your now work is more about the now, and that's what the Innovations in Mindfulness Award was about. And here we're working with a group of people. On the left here, we're working with a group of people who it's a charity in here where I live in Gloucestershire called Restorative Gloucestershire, and it's a restorative justice related organisation. And in the morning we were very much working in relation to the team themselves and the team well-being, and how they can use their eyes and connect, you know, learning from nature and photography, etc., to reframe how they're feeling and deal with, you know, support their own mental health and well-being. And then in the afternoon, we went into creating your future story. Now, this was less from a personal perspective, more from an organizational perspective, and looking at what is your current story in terms of your organization, the people you support, you know, your stakeholders, etc. And actually, how might you want to, you know, what would you like it to look like? And then how can we go from where we are now to where we want to be? So they went away with a whole load of reflections and actions based on things that they were seeing differently in order to create the future story for their organization that they wanted to see. But the creating the future story work, this is just sort of showing different examples of people that we've worked with in community settings and then more in workplace settings. So here we have examples like the Law Society in London, a pretty corporate company in Bristol with 44 people, and various GPs, you know, the NHS, etc. as well. So very much like with it, we do a lot of work with the NHS. And then on the left there, there's more community and non-profit based organisations. And then this is like, so this is gives you an idea as to the training the working with mindful photography training and the different modules and how it works. So it's really about learning to see initially, and then we go on to seeing from different perspectives, seeing with compassion, and then more specifically about connecting with nature. I mean, we encourage nature connection throughout, but that's more specifically, and then building resilience, and then practical ways of actually delivering this. So the idea is that people who do the training, some of them are therapists, some of them are coaches, some of them are creatives that are socially engaged, some are mindfulness teachers, some are, it could be so many different kinds of people. But the idea is that there's not one way of doing this. We provide a framework, we provide a methodology, and really importantly, the invitation is for them to go away and adapt it in a way that is suitable and appropriate for them. Their professional expertise, their client groups, their communities, etc. So it's very flexible, and the important thing is to keep that balance between the integrity of the work, and how people then go and deliver it. And then lastly, the new program. This will give you the Creating Hopeful Futures. So this is the training, but it's not just about the training. We run like workshops and stuff as well. But here it's what does the future look like if nothing changes? And then what does a caring and connected future look like? And seeing for future generations. And then actually the actual act of creating those hopeful future stories with practical applications, etc. And we draw on inspiration from lots of different places, and of course we're very careful to credit our sources, etc. Yeah, there's lots of other people that have inspired this work. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and well, you've got the links to the website anyway, but people are really welcome to follow us, of course, on Instagram, on Facebook. Our handle is Look Again Mindful Photography, or on LinkedIn. I'm not great at posting on the Look Again bit, but I post very regularly on the on my own LinkedIn profile, which is Ruth Davey. And if anyone does want to find out more about our work, they can subscribe to the newsletter through our website. And we also have a blog that we started earlier, well, last year. And yeah, so yeah, please feel free to get involved. What I personally would love is the opportunity to connect much more with other mindfulness organizations. I'll be honest with you, now that we've been recognized by the Mindfulness Initiative and the Heart No Trust, who were involved in the awards, the Innovations in Mindfulness Awards, we are now being taken seriously. But it's been hard because the mindfulness world can be seen to be quite like, you either do it like this or you don't do it at all kind of thing. And for me personally and professionally, the world needs this stuff. Now is time for action as well as the inner work. It's like the inner work and the outer work, and I seriously believe that to offer different ways of experiencing mindfulness in a way that can actually serve people from all backgrounds is really, really necessary and really needed. And I look forward personally, but also with Look Again, to contributing in some way to that. And I welcome any connections or networks or opportunities as well. So yeah. Do you have any questions or things you'd like to discuss?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please go for
it. Ruth, you said in a more general way about standard mindfulness teaching and you touched a bit on it after Teresa's remark. Can you say a bit more about this? The difference between what you call standard and what you're doing?
Yeah, I guess what I mean is the kind of more, what is now offered largely in, I mean, I don't know about the, around the world, but, I'll speak from my experience of the UK. But basically there's wonderful work happening in the mindfulness world, of course. It's and I've been on lots of mindfulness events that are all fantastic, and I've learned so much of what I'm now able to offer through those experiences. I'm talking well, I won't name names, but quite a few organizations within the UK. And I guess, there's the kind of more standard, like the MBSR, the MBCT, the Mindfulness for Life now as well, which I think is great. And, there's all these other, there's these different pathways, aren't there? For people who are practitioners, but then also the professional practitioners who do the teaching as well. And through, I guess my experience of it, and speaking to lots of people over the last year or so in particular, and off the back of the award and people that I've met through that there are so many people who really understand in theory the benefits of it all, but find it really hard in practice to it's this idea that one size doesn't necessarily fit all, that there are so many different ways of actually being present. Being present, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? It's about bringing our awareness to the present moment, and we can do that in so many different ways. And I think there's also this tendency for people out there to think, oh, mindfulness, oh, that's about sitting for 30, 40, 50 minutes, an hour on a cushion, and or lying down doing body scans, and of course that's part of it, but it's not the only way. When I was depressed and feeling really anxious back in it was 2014, 15, that kind of period, I did an 8-week mindfulness MBSR course. And every week I went back, I felt more and more stressed. I felt more and more like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do anything. I can't even do mindfulness. I can't even sit for 10 minutes. I can't even lie down for 20 minutes and do a body scan. I was giving myself such a hard time, and all that sense of compassion that I wanted for myself, I wasn't giving. I mean, I have done another 8-week course since, and I found it easier. My frame of mind is different. I'm a different, I was in a different place. But that sense of what I did feel like has never, I still remember it. If I think of it now, I'm like, oh, it wasn't easy. And what I find really easy and what really benefits me is walking for half an hour down the canal, or even in my garden, 5 minutes walking around my garden. I do that every morning now. 10 minutes, 10 minutes of a bit of movement, a bit of just walking around my garden, just looking and seeing how things change from one day to the next in my garden. I don't take a photograph, but I'm looking and I'm seeing and I'm moving and I'm connecting. Sometimes I might take a photograph, but that for me works, so the mindful walking, being in nature, and also connecting with other human beings like this. I mean, this feeds me too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And your example really speaks. I've been involved in training adolescent refugees who had experiences of torture and were very anxious. And they couldn't bear to sit for 10 minutes or have a body scan so I remember that very vividly. Yes. So
And I mean, I've worked with asylum seekers and refugees quite a lot. In fact, I used to work for a refugee-related charity in London, 25 years ago now. So way before my mindfulness journey, and it's one of the areas that is really close to my heart. And I'm still involved here, but more loosely. So much of this inner work is actually really inappropriate for a lot of people, you know, in the way that we do it. I mean, I've been very fortunate to work and live with people from different, you know, different continents, mostly Africa. I've lived in Africa quite a lot. I've worked in Africa. My son's half African, and you know, I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. Some amazing, you know, some of my best times, but also some real challenges, you know, and really being my eyes and my heart has always been very open to what's really going on, you know, to seeing beneath the surface. You know, my sense of social justice has always been a really, really big part of who I am, and I also know that is the case for a lot of people with ADHD. They really care deeply for injustice, you know. And this relates to mindfulness. This relates to looking and seeing. It relates to not just being, but to doing and doing differently, you know, and allowing our services, our practices to change, to I mean, I've just literally written a blog. It's going out in our newsletter tomorrow, about this a wonderful woman who I've known now for a few years. I'll just bring it up very, very briefly. I think it's, no, maybe not. Hang on 1 second. I just want to give, because visually you'll get a much better idea. So, oh, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong button now. I'm getting tired. So this project is called Beyond the Veil. Now, I really hasten to add, this is not a look again project, okay? The reason I'm showing this is because the woman Aisha Randera, whose project this is, I met her years ago on a look again work. She came to a look again workshop. She experienced look again herself. She then knew that one day she would be working with women in her community around how and adjusting it, adapting it in an appropriate way so that it was meaningful to the women in her community. So you can read all about it in the blog. I'll post a link in a sec. But, you know, so to cut a long story short, it's taken a few years to get to this point. But Aisha then did our training last year. I think it was this time last year, actually, roughly. And she always knew that she wanted to have an exhibition like this. Now, these are all the women who took part in the exhibition, and the exhibition that you can see behind her, behind the women, is the photographs of their mindful photography that they've created. And this is right in the city centre of Gloucester, right? Which, you know, is quite a big city here where I am, and close to where I live. This is the Bishop of Gloucester with Aisha, you know. I mean, this bishop's brilliant, you know, she's very involved in the community. These are the people who are coming to look at their work. You know, so many people just passers by. You can't see how crowded it was here, but you know, this was the launch, which was why I was invited to go. I was invited to go and speak. This is one of the women who happened to come on a Look Again workshop herself a couple of years ago. You know, so, and there's more, you know, the press were there, the TV, you know, it's like this went all over the local news. So, you know, this is powerful stuff. And for me, what made me feel really happy about this was that I was able to hand this over, trusting that Aisha would just get on and do it. I was there if she needed some advice or something, you know. But this was her project. It wasn't a Look Again project. So that the ripple effects, you know, I can now share this with you. This will ripple out, and the work that they're doing will ripple out, you know. And that is what makes my heart sing, you know. That's what this work is all about. And that's why, you know, offering little workshops like this, you know, they're powerful, hopefully. You know, and I really value more opportunities like this, and obviously I would love it if more people from the mindfulness world actually, you know, did our training, because I think it opens up so many doors to people, so many new doors and opportunities. Yeah. Sorry, I've gone on a bit there.
No, it's perfect. Well, thank you very much for opening this new door for us. Actually, this is right into the heart of eamba Exchange, where we want to help our community to connect to new contacts, new colleagues, or existing colleagues who are doing new things, and to be with each other without a hierarchy, to learn from each other, continuous learning, continuous networking, to ensure that we can all flourish together. This is in the heart of eamba Exchange, which is the events program of eamba. I've already taken a few notes of who to connect you to.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Those people would be very interested to meet you, and it would be nice to you. So this is also what eamba does. We want to really encourage networking and make sure that these connections help to bring mindfulness into the world and create mindful societies. So that's the mission of being out here. And really much gratitude to you for having taken the time and the energy for doing this. I personally found it very helpful for me that we also practiced. So I got a real sense of being in it, not only listening and observing and experiencing you as a sender, but in an interactive form. So this is really into the heart of the style and the culture of what the eamba Exchange wants to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And also thank you,
much.
Rosanna, for being here, and my dear colleague, Teresa.
Thank you both, all three of you, so much, and I hope that our paths will meet again. I haven't been able to take down your number there in your WhatsApp number.